Ladies and gentlemen, good evening to all of you. I welcome you here to the Éveil de Conscience platform. This is the top story in international news. Things are becoming clearer regarding, of course, this historic date of May 15th, which is tomorrow in Istanbul. Istanbul, where direct negotiations between Ukraine and Russia will take place. But what must be said is that Vladimir Putin and therefore Russia is actually managing to make the West swallow what the West poured out 3 years ago in Istanbul. In other words, what they refused 3 years ago. If they had accepted what was proposed to them, the conflict would not have continued until now, and the West would not have kept spending billions of euros and billions of dollars to finance sending countless Ukrainians and other European soldiers to their eternal rest. Ladies and gentlemen, Russia's choice of Istanbul is not a matter of chance. It is not a matter of chance. Vladimir Putin knows exactly what he is doing. He knows. And the Turkish president, Recep Erdogan, who is in tune with Russia, even if he sometimes pretends otherwise, he knows exactly why Istanbul was chosen. Then Russia has just spoken out about the elements of the agreement's content, since Russia, which is inviting, has said that it already has a text, a draft agreement. All that remains is for the Ukrainian side to read it. It will be adjusted, and then it will be adopted. But in any case, this agreement text that we are going to see, the content of the agreement is completely favorable to Russia, completely favorable. So, ladies, young ladies and gentlemen, dear valiant and respectful subscribers, in this video conference, this is what we are going to talk about. Thank you for sharing this video conference as much as possible. Tomorrow is the big day. Share it in every group you can. Give it lots of likes. That gives the video conference plenty of visibility. And when you leave a comment, it gives more weight to the video conference. So, above all, don't forget to leave comments and share the video conference. Let's dive deeper. A statement was made on May 14th, 2025. The statement was made by the special envoy of the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs for crimes committed by the Kiev regime. He made this statement in Kyrgyzstan. There you have it. The statement he made. He is the one announcing it. He is the special envoy of Russia to Kyrgyzstan, Rodion Mirochink. That's his name. He reads the following, this statement. He says, the text agreed upon in Istanbul in 2022 by representatives of Russia and Ukraine could be an option for resolving the conflict, taking into account adjustments over 3 years. What does that mean? It means the same text will be used again, but it will just be slightly adjusted to take into account the realities both parties have experienced over the past 3 years. So some things will be added and others will be removed. But what is the content of this agreement? What is the content of this agreement? By the way, it should be said, the agreement had been signed. It was about to happen. Ukraine and Russia had reached an agreement, but the United States and which other country, the United Kingdom, opposed the agreement. You know, this was during Joe Biden's administration, and that meant he is so inclined toward conflictual activities. He is the prototype, the biological big brother, if we can put it that way. In terms of spirituality, he is the biological big brother of Kadias Kallas, the current head of European diplomacy. Kadias Kallas. That's how the conflict broke out. or kept getting worse, that since it was just 2 months after the conflict started, it was in March. The final report was released on March 16th. So let's dive deeper to see what the content was, to refresh the memory of those who hadn't been following. There you go. For those who hadn't been following, since many hadn't been keeping up. So then, allow me. The final report had been published by the Western media outlet known as the Financial Times, which published it on March 16th, 2022. And the final report between Russia and Ukraine. The Financial Times had published indicating that Russia and Ukraine were working on a preliminary 15-point agreement. The agreement included 15 points, which would comprise, first, a ceasefire. Next, the withdrawal of Russian troops from Ukrainian territory. Then, the declaration of Ukraine's neutrality to be enshrined in its constitution. So, in the agreement, there should already be a ceasefire. Then, Russia should withdraw its troops following the ceasefire. Next, Ukraine should declare itself neutral, and this should be written into Ukraine's own constitution. And Russian should be recognized and as a co-official language and taught in schools. Yes, Russian as a co-official language taught in schools. And then, but it must be said, Russia had also asked for the demilitarization of Ukraine. Ukraine had to be demilitarized. In other words, Russia was now demanding that there be limits on the Ukrainian army and a ban on foreign military bases or nuclear missiles on Ukrainian territory. So in exchange, here are the main points you see of these 15 points. In exchange, Ukraine's security would be guaranteed by Turkey, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America. So that was it. In other words, they were doing everything Russia wanted. Ukraine was turning into a province of Russia, but that the security of Russia, or at least of Ukraine, was supposed to be ensured by the United Kingdom, the United States of America, and Turkey. So, well, here is the content of this agreement of 2022. Initially, Russia had insisted on the removal of Volodymyr Zelensky, that Volodymyr Zelensky step down as the head of Ukraine, and that there be the demilitarization of Ukraine, as well as the denazification of Ukraine and the surrender of the country. But Zelensky himself stated that Russia had softened its position and dropped many of its demands. So that means there was an understanding. There was an understanding. So in the end, what is going to be proposed tomorrow? It's that old text that will be proposed to see if there can be any adjustments, amendments, things to remove, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, here is what Russia is going to propose, which means that the countries that had opposed, those Western countries that had opposed what they had done there, Russia is doing it to them again. I don't want to say the word. So we will continue to follow this. Tomorrow is going to be a big day. Tomorrow I will be at the university, but I will organize myself during my breaks to quickly bring you analyses, exclusive analysis of what will happen in Istanbul. Ladies, young ladies and gentlemen, thank you all. Thank you for sharing the video conference as much as possible. This was the voice of your one and only samurai.